Yes, I understand. But, of course, you don't need to worry. I just need a few moments with them, and then after that, they're all yours. How ironic to see such bravado and initiative coming from you, especially when you consider the fact that you really couldn't have done this without me. Joint effort. Go ahead, tell yourself that. While it may be true that it was your men who apprehended the person in question, I'd like for you to remember that it was only possible due to my expertise. If it were not for my instruction and orders, right now we'd be arguing about a different type of corpse. So, if you please, I'd like to talk with them first before you take them away. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Oh, it seems that you're already awake. I apologize if it was because of our bickering. Were you up for long? Okay, then. I'll just take a seat if you don't mind. Long day at work, man. I guess not even the dead can sleep, huh? Tough crowd. I'm sorry if you feel rather uncomfortable at the moment. I can only imagine how painful it must be to have a knife lodged in your spinal cord. Just so you know, the knife inside you was doused in angel's bane, and the knife itself was made with the bone of a saint as its base. Also, what you're breathing in right now is an anesthetic gas with holy water as its main component, so I'm afraid you can't count on your healing factor anytime soon. Just precautionary measures, I'm sure you understand. You are a vampire after all. Who am I? Well, I'm sure you've heard of us. I'm part of the Supernatural Response Agency. Special Major Officer, Kuya Harbor, at your service. Yes, in layman's terms, we are demon hunters. Oh, and don't worry about your introduction. We'll get to that soon enough. Another question? How lovely. No, it's just a nice change of pace is all. Most supernatural captures you see were either too full of themselves or too dangerous to be kept alive. So, I assume demi-humans would be the same, and... Oh, you've been out for 8 weeks. Okay, calm down, man. We're being watched right now. If they see you struggling and trying to get out, those turrets over there will open fire and kill us both. Also, in case you forgot, you're paralyzed from the waist down, remember? From the knife, angel's bane, and the bone of a saint. Even if you do manage to take it out, which I doubt, you're not going to be healing as fast as you think. It's going to be because of the anesthetics. And not only that, but once the room's been lit up, the guards outside will swoop in for round 2, so... I like the confidence, but I'm afraid it'll take more than being a creature of the night to escape. You're 50 feet underground right now. Underwater, I might add. And if any one of the personnel presses this button right here, it'll send a signal to those above that you've escaped and they'll flood the place. It's also rigged to send a signal anyway if our heartbeat stops, so... Well, you'd be surprised, my friend. we face supernaturals on a near daily basis. If you knew the kind of crazy shit we've had to deal with, well, you'd come to realize that drowning to death would be a mercy to us in this line of work. Although, I do get your point. I am a valuable member of the agency, after all, so it would be a waste to have me die just like that. Although, still, should be no room for any funny ideas in that decayed, rotten brain of yours, yeah? As, if I may remind you once again, you're paralyzed from the waist down. So, how about we take it easy and just calm down, yeah? I just came here to talk, see how you're doing, interrogate you, classic cop stuff, if you will. Well, you don't have to if you don't want to, but I can't really help you out if you don't cooperate with me. Listen, if you want to live and get out of this alive, you're gonna have to work with me here. In fact, it isn't that much of an exaggeration to say that I'm your only chance at survival at this very moment, so how about it? I'm afraid I can't say just yet. Well, that's because you're already getting too much out of this. I've given a whole lot of information as it is. I'm sorry, but if you want to know more, you're going to have to talk. It's only fair for you to share some information as well, don't you think? It's either that or staying here with a knife in your back. Yes, I can help you. But only if you talk to me. You have my word. Excellent. So, let's start off with, what's the last thing you remember? Okay, but you still have a recollection of your past, right? No missing memories or anything like that. That's because our guys blew your brains out. Luckily, it wasn't sacred ammunition, so the damage wasn't too great. And regardless of whether it was a sacred shot or not, we still wouldn't know since we barely have any in-depth data on vampire biology, so just to confirm, you don't recall anything after you were apprehended, yes? Just making sure. So, anything else, or... Great! So, since there doesn't seem to be any problems with memory, let's get right into it, shall we? Who are you? I know I said we would handle your introduction, but I just want to make sure. I'm asking because we have a rather detailed catalog of vampires, both dead and alive. And with a few leads that I may have, putting that aside, you don't appear on any of the official records. Trust me, you'd be surprised at how much we know. And it's because of that knowledge, you could say, that you're here right now. If you were any other vampire or a lower class creature, you would have been killed on the spot. But the fact that you appeared at the exact same time as the night of our raid at the Countess's abode must mean something. And that's what I'm here to find out. Your connection between you and the Countess. Well, when we got to the scene, it looked like you two were in the middle of something. It seemed as if you two have some history. Or at least, she mattered to you in some way. I know it's a rather stupid question to ask, since she's basically an ancient evil who's undoubtedly made numerous enemies with time, but it's just that when I think about it, a vampire of your caliber being under the radar for so long, only to show up now, has to mean something. And on that note, I also looked into the records of other associations in other parts of the world that have supernatural specialities. And surprisingly enough, you don't appear in any of them. You may be right, but whether or not that information has value is up to me. And don't be so quick to demonize yourself. After all, it was you who saved those people, yes? Well, in any case, the night of the raid was deliberately done on the night we assumed the inaugural feeding would take place. As you know, it's an event meant to give way to the new royal bloods who would eventually take the positions of the High Council. It's important because only a few of the High Royal Bloods have both the authority to host such an event as well as the knowledge as to when and where it would take place. Which means one of a few things. You either have a connection to the High Royal families, have lived long enough to know about the information as secretive as a feeding, or have a history with the Countess herself. But, like I said, we've already looked into you as much as we could, so I doubt it's the first one. So either it would be have you lived long enough, or you having something against her. Luckily for you, you don't have to answer that. How? Well, surprisingly enough, a blood of a vampire has varying shades of black depending on how long they've been alive. Similar to how you can tell a tree's age by how many rims it has in its trunk. We examined your blood, and it's a rather lighter black. Not that noticeable, but it is a lighter black. Compared to a vampire as old as a countess. Which means that you have to have some type of grudge against her. And when you consider the fact that an inaugural feeding only takes place every 5,000 or so years, this had to be the only answer. You knew about the feeding. As to why or how, I can only assume you got it through the same way we did. You see, we have some old notes. Records, if you will, from the old generations of demon hunters. And considering that you could have only known through either being a High Royal or something similar to these notes, it seems more reasonable to assume you knew through the latter. Which brings me to my next question. What are your motives? Revenge for turning you? Perhaps she screwed you over in some way. Or maybe revenge for killing a loved one. Once, in this case. Well, if I did my research correctly, some 400 years ago, in a far eastern island, a village over by the countryside was slaughtered mysteriously. It was assumed at the time that since that side of the country had been engaged in a civil war, that the village was just caught in the crossfire. But the type of damage and remains left behind weren't exactly normal. You see, the accounts state of there being seemingly no signs of resistance or retaliation, and the remains of the villagers being either mauled beyond recognition or drained as if something sucked the blood straight out of them, which is something I'm sure you're aware no animal or human could be capable of. The village also had a population of 47 at the time, but there were only 45 bodies found. And although one of them was accounted for later down the line, the other one, however, remained a mystery. It was then assumed that that one person unaccounted for was the one who slaughtered the village, but you couldn't have. Right? I'm just taking a shot at the dark here, but yes, I do think it was you. Again, we only have histories and records in this country exclusively, on this side of the world. And considering that keeping tabs on every supernatural was extremely troublesome 400 years ago, it would make some lick of sense. So, well, again, it would only make sense that you would have come from overseas after finding out where the Countess was all this time. Again, it's either that or you survived the attack miraculously, and in the shock of both seeing all of your loved ones, as well as the understanding of what the hell just happened, you decided to run away. Rather, you didn't want someone in particular to see what you've become. Yes, all the people in your village died. All except 2. I'm afraid you were only told that as a precautionary measure. But it was true that your brother was recruited. The records say that he did serve the army for quite a while, but the exact same day that you guys were told of his death was the day he joined the Demon Hunters. He did possess talents that definitely would have been of value to the army, but again, his talents would have been more suited to join us. And so he was. Your brother was a scholar and traveled frequently and still had the time to come home every so often. And I'm afraid that's why your village was slaughtered. The Countess knew that your brother was a threat to her kind. He thought that by hiding his findings in his hometown, secluded in the far reaches of the country, they would be safe. He would then be mistaken, of course, but just know that not a day went by that he didn't feel the guilt of it all. I'm sure of it, because I'm his descendant. This journal of his is his and my family's heirloom. One of the entries, if not a fair number of them, tells of his regrets and guilt over his family's death. He loved you, all of you, with all of his heart, and if he could change everything, you know he would, right? Well, you could say that, but it's only right for me to be of service to my ancestor, yes? Yes, this foolish sentimentality might be the worst decision I'll ever make, but since your goals align with ours, I just thought I'd put it out there. I want you to join our ranks. Hear me out for a moment. You're probably aware of the rise of supernatural beings in modern society. Yes, that is the purpose of our organization, but at the end of the day, we can only do so much. As humans, we have our limits, and that's why we need something more. We need you, demi-humans, supernaturals who still retain their humanity in any way, shape, or form, to protect this country. No, this world from the ever-growing darkness. Well, the only justification I can give is that he was your brother. And that's all the time I have. Well, it was nice talking to you. And by the way, this is a limited time offer. In less than 3 weeks, you're going to be transferred to a research facility. Can't really say it'll be fun there, so might as well put it out there. You're going to be given some blood rations in 4 days. It won't be enough to give you strength to escape. Rather, it's just to make sure that you don't go feral or die. The person who will give you your blood ration will be a person I trust. Make sure to tell them your answer by the time they arrive. Until then, it was nice knowing you, ancestor.